Hey there, folks. Greg Shepard here, S&A Financial Services. For those of you that don't know me, I specialize in helping folks in higher education get the most out of that oftentimes confusing higher ed retirement plan, focusing on those TIAA accounts, which are typically very, very confusing. Okay, so in this YouTube video clip, I'm going to focus on a podcast episode I recently did about a couple weeks ago. For those of you that don't know, I do have a podcast, I guess a podcast under the same title, Higher Ed Retire. So if you find yourself bored during an evening or on the weekend, go ahead and look that up wherever you get your podcasts. Higher Ed Retire. So during that podcast, I answer some of the questions that have been brought to my attention in the last, I do it on a monthly basis, and then addressed a couple of topics of importance as I deem important. So what I'm going to do is share some of these questions with you that I talked about on the podcast. Hopefully that makes some sense. So here we go. I got looks like three questions here, and maybe a couple topics depending upon how long we go here. So we'll kind of shoot from the hip. So how the first question posed to me, and these are just popular questions. Okay, I get a lot more than three questions, but these are just three popular questions. How are you, me? How am I linked to TIAA? So let me expand on that. Pretty good question. So I don't work for TIAA. I don't work for your university. Some people get a little confused. I work for myself. Actually the sign, there we go. The sign, S&A Financial Services is my firm, independent RIA. RIA stands for Registered Investment Advisor. I am part of TIAA's advisor network. I have been so for many, many years. Okay, so I have a dedicated team that I can call on point on my phone whenever I need help with things. And admittedly so, when it comes to TIAA traditional, there's a lot of nuances and tricks and all that stuff. So I lean on them a lot, and they're great folks over there. But I don't no monetary compensation. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not employed by TIAA. Never have been. Never will be. So hopefully that answers. I'm able to give advice on TIAA accounts, whereas a lot of advisors don't have the capabilities to do that, okay, to the extent that I do. Hopefully that makes some sense. Next question, more of a statement maybe. I had a few correspondence, typically via email. You know the old adage, paralysis by analysis. Okay, so this applies to a lot of folks out there, admittedly so to them, when trying to unpack all the nuances of TI, specifically TI traditional, but we'll group in, all the TI accounts in and of themselves. So there's a lot of folks out there, probably you included, that are a lot smarter than myself, right? But you don't do this for a living. And I keep, beating a dead horse here, kicking a dead horse, whatever the saying is. There's so many strategies that you don't even know. Again, the old adage, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of folks will go to webinars, they'll attend webinars, in-person seminars, talk to TIAA, maybe talk to some colleagues and kind of gather some information, do their own research, information gathering. And so you get enough information to be dangerous, but then you start trying to maybe see if you're going to implement these strategies. You get confused or you get frustrated or both, and then you have paralysis by analysis, okay? And you do nothing, okay, which is very common. And that's why I think a lot of folks owe it to yourself, your future self, to at least get some help in that regard. And help can come from various forms, whether it be directly from TIAA or someone, in my world that deals directly with those accounts from an advisor role. Okay, what's the next one? Oh, okay. A popular question I got is how do you maximize? So the question is, how do I maximize my TIAA traditional? Okay. Typically what's going on here is that you have various contracts and you're trying to figure out the way to take advantage of these most recent high interest rates when it comes to TIAA traditional. So there's this is opening up a can of worms and going down a rabbit hole. Okay. So there's various ways you can take advantage of TIAA traditional. oh gosh, I'm not going to take the time right now to do this. But maybe I'll answer it this way. You know, podcast episodes, they're longer and I tend to get into more information. I'll answer it this way on this YouTube video. There are ways you can take advantage of these TI traditional rates, and I think everyone should at least explore these options, whether it be in illiquid contracts, mostly liquid contracts, but let's not throw the illiquid contracts out the door. You still can do some things with those accounts, okay? Depends on, maybe you're retiring within 120 days, you can do some things. These reinvestment rules, okay? There's various strategies that you can implement, probably unbeknownst to you, a lot of them. So I'll just leave it at that. Okay, I don't want to get into the strategies right now. So I didn't really answer the question. You know, the question was, how can I maximize my TI traditional? I'll just say that you can, most likely. Okay, it's just the more knowledge you have, the more dangerous you become when it comes to making those educational decisions. Frustration. Okay, so this really wasn't a question, but this is something that's come up in the last, month, I'd say, with a lot more than I've seen in the past. Just frustration overall when it comes to TIAA and you giving them a call on the phone. No knock on TIA, folks. I will advocate. They are as knowledgeable, good people over there as there is in my industry when it comes to these vendors. But let's remember who they work for and what their role is. When you call TIA, their role is really to answer your questions and for lack of a better term, kind of guide you in certain directions. You have this option, and this option. They'll do a good job of that, but they're not your fiduciary advisor. They're not there to tell you what the best option is. And so a lot of times, and some of the times I've found out is when you call TIA, before talking to like me, I'll tell client or prospect, John Smith, that, hey, John, you have this strategy afforded to you. And then they'll get frustrated because they'll say, well, I just talked to TIA not that long ago. They didn't tell me that. They're most likely not going to open up a can of worms when it comes to a certain strategy. You might have to ask them about that strategy for them to piggyback off that and expand on it. But if you don't know what you don't know, how are you supposed to ask about that strategy? Okay, it's a shell game almost. Okay, so I understand it. I get it. A lot of the frustration. Sometimes a lot of you folks out there feel like you're not getting the answers, or from point A to point B, you're not getting there in the manner that you want to. So it gets frustrating. I get it. By all means, I keep, this isn't really a self-promotion, but sincerely, I'll help you as much as I can. Contact information is down below. Feel free to contact me, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, where's my time here? All right, I'll tell you about, I've talked about this before in a video and a podcast episode as well. I ran into one situation. Anytime I run into scenarios that I think would be advantageous to you, I do try to share those. So this is an issue, a scenario that did occur. I've talked about this before, but I saw someone or heard about someone doing this again. So what we had, let me set this up right or correctly. So what we're trying to do, this individual is trying to do this 120-day reinvestment rule. That's where you take monies out of TI traditional within in a liquid contract. You're supposed to place that money in money market. That's what I would do. You don't have to in money market. Wait 120 days, reintroduce those monies back to TI traditional, and you realize that new rate once those monies go back into TI traditional. This individual, after listening to a couple of my videos and talking to a few folks, thought he could do this. I guess he was wrong. So what he did is he took money from an ex-employer. Okay, so he's terminated his service, had a TI traditional in a liquid contract, took money out, rolled it over to an IRA, placed it in a money market over at his IRA custodian, and then 120 days, he tried to reintroduce those monies back into a different contract to take advantage of. He tried to introduce it to like an illiquid RA contract, I believe, that's getting like 7%. He thought that was, hey, it sounds great. I'm going to go from 4.4% 4 to 7. That sounds phenomenal. You couldn't do it. Okay, so it wasn't the worst mistake because he still has those monies over at the IRA that it's liquid and he can extract from that. But I've seen it time and time again where folks try to implement these strategies and it backs up on them. This one wasn't really that bad, but I just wanted to share that with you. If you want to accomplish that 120-day, I just call it a reinvestment rule, liquid contract, TI traditional, sell it from TI traditional, place it in a money market. That's just my opinion. None of this is investment advice. Do not construe it as such. Wait 120 days, then reintroduce those monies. Hopefully the rate is still high. I think we're here in November of 2023. I think it will be. And then you're off and running. Okay. And that money's still liquid, assuming you're still doing this in a liquid contract. Okay. And that kind of correlates with one of those questions about how do I maximize my TI traditional. Okay. Folks, I've gone way over time here. I'll encourage you to listen to the podcast that I have. Again, same title, Higher Ed Retire. I do have more time to expand on things. These are just typically 3 or 4 minute clips. But I'm here to help. So if you want any help in any fashion dealing with these TIA accounts, information should be below. By all means, feel free to contact me. All right, folks, Greg Shepard here, S&A Financial Services. Go out and have a good one. All right, y'all take care. Bye-bye.